And now, Pujya Atman Sri Swami Jyotirmayananda commences tonight's Satsang with a Sanskrit peace chant.
Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We begin with Mystic Song by Sri Swami Lalitananda, played and sung by Sri Swami Umananda and Sri Niranjan and Rajanish.
Our song tonight is based on a poem by Swamiji, and it's called O Thou Divine Wisdom. Speak to me, come to me. You shine in the radiant sun and ride on the soft whisper of the early morning breeze. Your melody sings in the gentle rain that falls on the flowers of spring. O thou divine wisdom, the sacred light of my soul, speak to me, come to me. You are the tender stream of eternal love flowing through my heart. We are recording from the ashram of our revered Guru, Pujya Atman Sri Swami Jyotirmayananda in Miami, Florida. Today is June the 13th, 2018, Wednesday evening, and tonight Swamiji will be lecturing on Yoga Vasistha. This is series 2018, class number 48. And now, Pujya Atman Sri Swami Jyotirmayananda.
Om Brahmanandam Param Sukhadam Kevalam Jnana Murtim Dvandvatitam Gagana Sadrisham Tattvamasya Lakshyam Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadhi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Triguna-rahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami. Om. Adorations to Sadguru, who is Brahman, the giver of supreme bliss, embodiment of pure consciousness, one without a second, vast as the ether, infinite, eternal, beyond the three gunas and their modifications, the supreme preceptor. Yoga Vasistha, in Utpatti Prakarana, the story of Leela continues. This section 21. Just to reiterate some points of this story, to make this, firstly, if you are not very precise in listening, the story is confusing. But not to worry about the story. The purpose of this story is to bring you the teachings. Now, I'm not discouraging you from knowing what the story is. I'm going to use 3 fingers. This finger is Leela. Leela is the story. That's how it started. Leela and Padma. They are in a mandapa, in a royal palace, where dead body of Padma lies. Leela becomes very anxious. Where is the soul? Goddess, she is a devotee of Goddess Saraswati, and she has secured boon. First boon that even after his death, the soul to stay in Leela's own place. So that's where Leela is, in this finger. Now Goddess Saraswati gives her a shocking information that King Padma is already a ruler. First she takes her by her astral body and to this finger, the third one, where Leela is surprised to see King Padma is a young man, ruler of a country. He is known as Viduratha. And he is in a great successful state. He has inherited a big kingdom. And all the royalties and officers are around. And another surprising, she sees very similar faces. After this, Leela is brought back into her place, where dead body is covered with flowers, and her physical body is in a meditative pose. All that experience was by subtle body. Her physical body didn't have to go anywhere. Leela has been guiding her. Rather, Saraswati has been guiding her. So, now at this stage of the story, Goddess Saraswati is giving her insight into the illusory. First, she tells that experience of time, space, that her husband has already grown up, while in her world only some hours have passed. This experience of time, space is based upon your mind. And mind is fashioned by your samskaras, vasanas, karmas. So all the world you experience is through your mind, and all that experience is a kind of a mirage. The reality behind the mirage is Purnamadaha Purnamidam. Purnam, absolute pure consciousness. Now, without leading you there, now this story is continuing in this finger. Leela. Saraswati is telling Leela. And she has already informed her of her husband. And that relates to this finger. That in her previous embodiment, they belong to a special place called Parvat Gram, where Padma was Vasistha Brahmin and Leela was Arundhati. And they were very great people, but Padma developed a fascination for being a king, saw a king and his glory, and he died with that idea. As a result of that karma and vasana, he has become Leela. So the story relates to this. And there also another point, that Arundhati had devotion to Saraswati and had secured the same boon that Leela has asked. So it is the same personality, remembering in an unconscious way of her previous embodiment. So in brief, Arundhati has secured the boon that when her husband dies, Vasistha, may his spirit stay right there, don't leave the room. And after he died, Arundhati also passed away due to grief. So Goddess Saraswati tells Leela that all your experience and all the world you are seeing emanates from a little corner in Parvat Gram. All this seems quite, but think of computer. You create a folder, and within the folder, in one little spot, you create another folder. And within the folder, create another folder. Once upon a time, human being would have been very surprised to hear this type of technology. But there is no surprise. Think of this creation and think of God, not even as clever as the computer technology. In other words, try to understand the divine wisdom far excels all human cleverness in technology. So do not expect the whole world to be explained according to your mental concepts. But this is just to initiate you towards the understanding the world you are experiencing is like a mirage. It's not the reality. And a simpler way to understand, you experience your dream. During your dream, you have absolutely no question, is this a real world? And you experience pleasure and pain and all that perfectly as normal as you would be experiencing in the waking state. Everything is real. But when you gain an insight, you say, I am dreaming, this is not real. Then even though the world is there before you, even your body is there, you are climbing steps, and you are in a predicament of you may fall down. But you have come to an awareness, this is a dream. And with that awareness, you can see even your body falling down and breaking into pieces. But you have nothing to do with the pieces. That becomes the basis for giving you insight to the Jivan Mukti, Videha Mukti. But all the story of bondage and release are based on mind. Mana eva manushyanam. That's what subtle point behind it. With this, let me go on with Goddess Saraswati. While the story goes on, there are intermissions where Saraswati goes on explaining to Leela about the unreality of the world and the miracles created by your vasanas. This world is experienced due to avidya, ignorance. And ignorance continues to operate until one develops vichar. Vichar is enquiry, not intellectual effort. This is two stages. Intellectually, you try to understand. You read the books, you hear the lecture. But how much you assimilate depends upon the purity of your heart. When that purity develops, intellect operates in an insightful manner and ultimately intuitional level. So that process of insight and intuition, when it begins, that's called vichar movement. That vichar movement cuts down ignorance. Wisdom removes the illusion of duality. Duality, we always say, just the minimum, there is somebody other than you. Two realities. But two realities bring about countless that we have to figure out by mathematics. There's a saying, see, sannyasi goes into an ashram, lives alone, and there is a proverbial parlance, talk. If you are akela, ek, you are absolutely undisturbed. The moment there is two, there is a village. And if there is 3, there is a town. The ultimate reality is therefore is absolute. The moment you did think of something else other than Brahman, now comes into what type of relation? Do they talk to each other? And then there are whole study of Brahman, Prakriti, and many things that go on. To summarize this stage, there are 3 steps in spiritual movement for attaining enlightenment. Enlightenment means realization of the truth. The absolute alone exists. Realization is not creation of anything. You have nothing to show off if you attain liberation. First stage is Mano-Nash. Mano-Nash is training yourself in such a way that you can face changing situations in life, pleasure, pain, adversity, prosperity, day, night, spring season and rainy season, all the pairs of opposites with equanimity. And what you look for and aspire for is increasing serenity and equanimity. You are not swayed by things happening and what you should secure, but just securing your serenity and diving deeper into your serenity, waters of serenity, to discover Aham Brahmasmi. I'm absolute peace, eternity. Mano-Nash becomes your gateway, first step. But while Mano-Nash takes place, subtle desires go on changing also. Without their change, Mano-Nash will not be possible. Mano-Nash and Vasana-Akshaya are interrelated and interdependent. To the extent Vasana gets purified, Mano-Nash becomes easier. To the extent Mano-Nash has been exercised, purity of Vasana becomes easier. So come to next level, Vasana-Akshaya. Vasanas come under 2 categories, Shubha Vasana, Ashubha Vasana. Shubha Vasana is based upon your love of God, your spiritual insights, increasing insight. Shubha Vasana is perfectly commendable, desirable. Ashubha Vasana is based upon 5 kleshas, afflictions. And let me name that. First is called asmita, egoism. Again, give you more First is avidya, mind that stays satisfied with ignorance. So that in itself becomes the source of other afflictions. That's the mother of afflictions, avidya. But avidya has 4 children. Asmita, egoism. Here also understand, if you have Shubha Vasana, egoism, ego in you brings gaurav, spiritual pride. And that's not negative, that's positive. If you are a lion cub, you have every right to roar. So that type of spiritual pride is perfectly normal. Sattvic pride you develop when you attain certain success. It encourages you to go further. But Rajasic, Tamasic pride, that becomes your klesha. You have not attained it, but you want to force yourself to think you have attained it. First, give a shocking blow to your own head. And then look at others and you demand them to recognize that you have attained it. Look for your fulfillment by creating a situation where people always appreciate you. That type of asmita, that's a big klesha, obstacles that creates all karmas, etc. Avidya, asmita, the more you are involved with ego, the more you will swing in the world by pleasure and pain. And so it's called raga and dvesha. Some things seem so delightful that you go all the way to get it without even having the time to understand whether really it is delightful or not. Similarly, you begin to hate simply having studied something very superficially. Someone doesn't talk to you, then suddenly you develop, oh, this person has joined my enemies. I'm just joking, but simple way to understand, raga, dvesha. The raga, dvesha experiences create karma that restricts the soul brings the soul into the body. Karma that is the basis for your embodiment. And embodiment becomes so important for your mind that the mind doesn't have any other thing to think of but your body mindset. And with it comes constant fear of losing. It's called abhinivesh klesha. Subtle fear dominates human mind. You possess a wonderful property, see your wonderful building build up, and while you are enjoying it, but suppose hurricane comes this way. The abhinivesh klesha is sneaking into your experience. These kleshas bring out many negative thought waves. So don't go after so many thought waves, but if these kleshas go on creating their impressions, and those impressions, if they go very deep, become seed, they become samskaras. Samskara state, you cannot touch them. Also understand, in vasana state, you are more aware, your vasana is more visible. It's just like when you see sprouts, you can manage to remove those weeds that are showing up. But if they are completely buried and going to emerge 5 years later, you don't worry about them. No. So therefore the focus is on vasana. How to handle the vasana. First, to understand your vasana is based upon all these 5 points: ignorance, egoism, attachment, hatred, fear of death. If you go on opposing these 5 in your daily life, instead of constantly filling your mind with the dread of death, read stories, recite mantras, think of Hanuman and all those japa, prayer, serve, love, all type of good activities. They switch your mind from fear to fearlessness. Similarly, go on gaining vairagya. Things that seem so pleasant, what's behind it? What type of object you should go after and what you should not. Simply because they are pleasant, that doesn't mean that you should dive into it. And that understanding of the transience of the world, vairagya prakarana. And allowing your raga to turn into bhakti. Develop anuraga. You see, when you have raga, it has always a limit. You found an object that you like so much. And once you have gotten it, now you have many things in your mind to worry about, how to protect it, how to secure it, how to guard it, so many things. So your raga gradually does not stay as fresh as you found it and begins to stink in a while. So increasing raga makes your mind dull. But the same raga turned towards in a spiritual way, you begin to love your prayer, begin to love satsanga. You begin to wait for the opportunity for allowing your mind to practice meditation, turning to, in brief, you are getting attached to God. Now, as this attachment develops, you don't feel that type of stinky situation. Your attachment grows with more fervor, more and more. That's called anuraga. Paradudaktiriti. So raga and dvesha, they are gradually sublimated. Ravinivesh, that's what Mahabharata dramatizes, Bhishma has Ichha Mrityu. Allow your mind to understand the role of your body. You have gained sufficient time to understand that. And the idea the body will not be there should not be so shocking to your mind. That's your big achievement in life. And how does it appear? Ichha Mrityu. Means, no matter whenever death comes, it is my desire. My means God's. Bhishma had that type of boon given to him, that he will die according to his own will. People receive a message of a different type, that how powerful he was, that death would come and he wouldn't. He will remain unshaken, because he had not made up his mind. That's not the real poet. The reality behind it, you are in the hands of God, you have surrendered. So no matter how things happen, inwardly you are not in contradiction. This is your will, your big why. This world did not exist. Now let me first conclude on that. These kleshas, their impressions have been gathered in your mind, speaking more in your whole mindset, chitta. And as you do sadhana, you begin to study them, just to give you an outline of it. First stage in children is called prasupta, is dormant. What they are going to be in future, you don't know. All children look innocent, wonderful, cute. But don't be fooled. As they grow up, they begin to show their personality, positively or negatively, both ways. But we are talking mostly about the klesha, the negative. The negativity, negative things that person has is all sleeping in the childhood. But as one child begins to grow, kleshas begin to express. If you have practiced sadhana and in a satsanga environment, you will attain a state called tanu. Tanu means attenuated. In attenuated state, kleshas become very passive. Illustration is given in the form of putting a snake in a freezer. It forgets about its poison and its fangs. But start giving little milk, warm milk. And so the snake will start hissing. So in other words, you gain certain serenity and control over your mind and enjoy a positive state, but don't become so relaxed that you forget about sadhana. Because what has been rendered passive, it will become active if you stop your sadhana. So that's the description of Tanu Avastha. Next state of our is described as Vikshipta Avastha. Vikshipta means normally people behave in a very ideal way, good people, civilized. But in challenging situations, they lose grip over their civility. That state is called Vikshipta Avastha. Next stage is called Udara Avastha. Udar, generous. That's what is allegorical term. Which means you don't see any difference. You're angry, your eyes are red, your face itself is in tension. And somebody says, don't you know, it's not good for you. And you become increasingly agitated. How dare you say that? It is this face that has accomplished so many things. That's udar. You go on generously creating negativity within yourself and are not ashamed of it. These are different states. And what is ideal is Dagdha Avastha. When you go through Manonash and spiritual wisdom begins to enter, like a light entering into a dark room. And a dark room is in old style, having lots of film negatives. The businessmen want to develop them, lots of them. But once the light goes, all of them are spoiled, no matter how fascinating they might have been. So all the karmas that are samskaras that could have given you fascinating embodiments, they all wiped away. And future karmas stop. Because you can't create karmas with a mind that has no kleshas. Now therefore, in appearance, only prarabdha karma continues. In appearance, because the person who is enlightened, he is not viewing himself as the body. So for him there is no problem. But for others who are studying the Vedanta, and they begin to ask, Guru, if you are enlightened, why is it you are holding your body? And the disciple doesn't even understand that if the Guru is not there, nobody is going to give it the answer. So I will not go into too much detail. This world did not exist in the past. So how can there be memories of objects? Goddess Saraswati is giving the insight into the role of memory. And memory operating in a human mind is based on karmas backed up by ignorance. So no matter how many things you remember in your life, they all move away from your mind. It's just like accounting. See, no matter thousands of papers and sheets go on with accounting and ultimately dump them in the garbage. But day to day you should not miss even a penny. In a simple, joking manner. So memory goes on operating, that's your practical reality. But behind that my memory, try to understand the role of the three gunas. Your mind is tamasic. Now your memories will be all the bitter things you have experienced. And what's more, fake memories. Some memories may be actually real, but many types of things fake. But you can't distinguish it. That itself is a big science, memory. How you are remembering in this life. Details don't matter. Things that don't matter, the soul pushes them out. Things that matter, they flow in your life. Say, for example, in your previous life, you were a great musician and you wanted to have the project of enhancing your musical talent. And you had, behind that attainment, you had a lot of stories, how many gurus you had, teachers, and how many instruments, who didn't like it, who were enemies, who were friends. But after death, you are born in a situation, in musical family. Now you don't remember all the details. But the moment you put your hand on the piano, you are surprised, your hand moves better than the experts. It's not by accident. There's cause behind it. So that's how memory is operating in every individual. Not details, which doesn't matter. But all these memories that are operating, should be utilized towards the fulfillment of the purpose of life. They should serve dharma, artha, kama, moksha, purpose. If the memory is just operating like swarming bugs over your brain, then just it's a tremendous tension. It's not serving any purpose. So therefore, there's a whole process of making change in your memory, and that happens again as you live your life with the spirit of integral yoga. You don't have to calculate how many memories have gone, what memory should I get back, etc. That's all that happens. The tree grows, it doesn't have to calculate what minerals should I have, what is photosynthesis. Why should there be thorns? When should be flowers? All happens by nature. Be aligned with a spiritual sadhana. All these details automatically begin to happen. But when you study them, it becomes much more enjoyable and gives you a greater clarity in your understanding. Now, ultimately, final memory is the mystic recall. I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am Brahman. And never slipped from that state. Simple illustrations. There are so many illuminations of the sun. There are countless reflected suns. Look at them, how miserable they are, jumping from pot to pot, shaking everywhere. They have forgotten who they are. Recall, I am the sun. Even though all the reflections may be there, but this recall makes you jump out of all this and blend with the sun. It's allegorical. You can't describe anything in a realistic way. Spiritual movement is not the world of mental reality. Therefore, Raj Yoga, let me turn your attention, Raj Yoga Sutra that describes Shraddha, faith must enter your heart. Virya, strength. As faith begins to develop its purity, you also discover you have strength beyond your own estimation. You have certain idea, I can wake up only for 6 hours. I can do work only for 4 hours. I'm joking, but the idea, if you have faith and you get involved with that, your mind doesn't care. Sports people do fascinating works beyond their own imagination. That energy is there. So Shraddha leads you discovery of that fascinating energy that enables you to triumph over great difficulties, and you become surprised. That's called virya. And virya becomes the basis for recollection, memory. Aham, I am not the body. That's the reality, but how many people remember it? How long can you remember it? And even if you remember it, just some news. It's not like you have gotten a jewel, a whole necklace of most costly pearls, and you put it on your neck. Think how you feel at that time. But when you are told you are Brahman, neck hunches down. Theoretical concept, I am Brahman, understood it. Oh. So that's the description of virya, smriti. That smriti puts you in samadhi. Samadhi means beyond the limitation of your consciousness. Your realistic world has a circumference, and everyone stays within that limit until you learn the art of samadhi. Become so, first concentration, go deeper. The stillness of your mind suddenly allows you to experience expansion that you didn't imagine. And that process goes on until you have nirvikalpa samadhi, which is the highest that leads you to liberation. So samadhi brings about prajna. Intellect becomes intuitional. So remember, Shraddha, faith, virya, spiritual vigor, smriti, spiritual recall, samadhi, expanding consciousness, and prajna, enlightened state. Therefore, O Leela, meditation on the divine self brings about the cessation of the illusory relationship between seer, seen, and sight. We are referring to the triad. In relative consciousness, when you are dreaming, the dream subject is not real. The dream world is not real. The experiences of pleasure and pain are not real. And while dreaming, if someone tells you, your mind gets more burdened, because that is another in the same world of seer, seen, and sight. Waking state is similar. And that's the great project in the spiritual movement. Not to be constantly dominated by the triad, because that triad is an illusion. It is a distorted state of consciousness. Pure consciousness doesn't need the triad. The sun does not need shining through the clouds, being refracted into rainbows, going into thousands of reflections. Sun doesn't have need to do that. All this you may say, but then why it happens? It's a mental illusion. Your mind is interpreting it. Reality is not. Brahman is ever the same. Meditation on the divine self brings about the cessation of the illusory triad. When samadhi is perfected, you will discover yourself as the self that sustains all the world illusions, the desires, and all that you can imagine about countless worlds and individual souls. All that you can mentally imagine is negated, because mind itself is negated. So all the contents of the mind move away. And the goal is reached. The goal is enlightenment. Then desires do not exist. Param tripti. And more will come in future. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
If you have a question for Swamiji, please raise your hand, and Radhika's bringing you the mic.
Pranam Swamiji. How can you increase your Shraddha or faith?
Through Satsanga and Seva.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Gurudev. Gurudev, you mentioned about upon self-realization, there is realization that all imaginations are nothing but they disappear. Is that the same as the Srishti Drishti or Drishti Srishti Vivek compared to Ajatava? That's always very
It is
confusing.
the same. It is the same, Drishti, Srishti. Drishti means mind begins to project and there is Srishti. Both are simultaneous. The mind is moved away, then just like you close your eyes, everything goes. That's Drishti, Srishti is allegorical term. Drishti, you look, whole Srishti is before you. Close your eyes, everything gone. The magic happens just with your eyes.
Swamiji, I read later on in the Yoga Vasistha about Parakaya Pravesh. What's the mystical significance of that kind of?
These are all distractions. Mind is unable to suddenly go to very great height. So mind is led. Mind gets fascinated when you present to the mind something miraculous. Siddhis are all miraculous. Any siddhi you talk about, a person can walk on water. People will take million miles to see that. You are now coming to the Siddhi aspect. Siddhi aspect, many things you can do by amazing effort. But whatever you do, what I am describing is of no use. If you have Parakaya Pravesh and you go on entering into somebody without inviting, you will be creating worse karmas. So it's not desirable. But coming to the Siddhi point, how does a soul get embodied? The whole process mind goes after in Raj Yoga Samyama. And mental will, the yogi can leave the body, let the whole death process occur, guided by the mental will, and enter into another dead body that's fresh. And now the person lives through another body. So that type of story comes in the scriptures. But all these are the stories and the stories. They have nothing, no real purpose behind it. Mind has amazing powers. That's all the moral behind it. But allowing the mind to go after those powers, that scriptures discourage that. You can have all the powers. Ravana has lots of powers. But in spite of all that Ravana had to be destroyed. The real mental focus should be towards fulfilling the purpose of life. There, when the Siddhi you gain in that direction, then that's perfect. Anything else is just deviation, temptation. Okay.
We have one last question about viraha, the significance of the anguish of viraha in spiritual devotional path.
That also is highly mystical. Viraha means feeling a mystic longing, a mystic discomfort for not having enjoyed unity with God or coming closer to God. The word viraha is very deluding to the masses. Any negative way, if mind, say for example, you are separated from your near or dear one, and then you suffer. That suffering is totally different. That suffering damages you and puts you under big stress. But there comes a stage your soul becomes suddenly hungry for spiritual proximity with God. And that hunger is so delightful, and the expectation is so keen. The only way you describe it is what people know, the negative way. Because there is no comparison here. So therefore, that intensity does not give you any pain. Time may pass. The viraha goes on increasing. That's what Kabira says, Lali mere lal ki jis de dekhaunt is lal. The devotee goes out and begins to look for the beloved, divine beloved. One corner looks, there he is. Now becomes excited. Another corner, oh, there. He's not satisfied. Now there comes a kind of increasing hunger. All over is God. Still not satisfied. मैं भी हो गई लाल. There is no separation left. Until then you are in the state of viraha. In Vedantic terms, it is called mumukshutva. It is translated as burning aspiration, but nothing burning about it. Okay.
Don't think that you are dreaming. We actually have Rajneesh return to his ashram family. We welcome him home. Tomorrow, all are welcome to join the discussion group, interactive discussion group that meets at 6 here in the Satsang room. They're discussing the art of positive thinking. On Friday, Swamiji continues with the Tulsi Ramayana. Saturday, pranayama and meditation. And Sunday, the new series on the Gita and a delicious dinner. Remember, it's Father's Day weekend. So if you're a child, bring your father here. And if you're a father, bring your child here. What better place could they possibly be in? And of course, remember, in July 22nd, Sunday, at 5 p.m., we'll be celebrating Guru Purnima. And
Father,
now,
Father, mercy take. Father, Father, mercy take. No more poetry I will make.
Oh, so it's it's time to come for kum kum.